Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me this afternoon in summarising the main points of the budget today. It looks like it's going to be a fairly short video because a lot of the hype hasn't come to fruition, which is good, but there are a few points which I think might be helpful in terms of your overall financial planning and inheritance planning as well. And those changes I just wanted to detail now. Firstly, with regard to inheritance tax, as you're aware, you currently have personal allowances of £325,000, which you can offset against any assets before inheritance tax becomes due. There's also an additional property allowance if you decide to leave your property to your children, and that's a further £175,000 each, bringing in total for a married couple the allowances to two lots of £500,000, so £1 million effectively of assets will not be liable to inheritance tax. The good news is that was set until 2028, and it's now going to be extended till 2030, so no worries, no changes on that side of things. However, the one significant change, and it's the only change in the pensions market surprisingly, is that any inherited pensions, any pensions you leave behind for children or descendants generally, they will fall into the calculations for inheritance tax. So therefore, whereas at the moment they are outside of inheritance tax, they are from 2027 going to be pulled into that equation, which is not ideal. It may not affect some of you, it may affect others. There are workarounds with this, as with any inheritance tax situation, whereby you can plan in advance. And I would urge you to possibly have a chat with me if you wish to about trusts and the options that are available within those for being able to shelter some of your assets in future years against inheritance tax. The other thing that I will just mention, because I know some of my clients are in the farming fraternity, there has been a slight change there, namely that agricultural assets which currently are exempted from inheritance tax and can be passed on quite rightly through the family as working assets, that is now going to be limited from April 2026 to £1 million. Anything over that is going to have a new rate of inheritance tax, a special rate of inheritance tax, which is going to be set at not 40% but 20%. So basically your first £1 million of agricultural assets will still be protected from inheritance tax, but anything over that will have a 20% potential liability. So that's something that unfortunately is going to hurt the community, and I don't think that they've probably fully allowed for the impact of that, but please be aware of that and obviously talk to whoever you can, accountants or otherwise, about whether there are any workarounds with that. Moving on from that, there is just, I would just mention about capital gains tax. That's changed. That's actually, I'm surprised because I thought it could have been a lot worse than it is, but currently capital gains tax is chargeable on assets such as shares, second properties, and certain other types of investment. Now, it's aligned to income tax. So basically any gains that you have when you sell an asset will be added to your income tax to determine whether you pay a lower rate of capital gains tax or a higher rate of capital gains tax. Currently for investments such as shares, investment bonds, by the way, such as many of you have, do not come under the capital gains tax regime, so don't worry, that's income tax, that's not a concern. But for capital gains tax, currently the rate for investments and shares is 10% for lower rate taxpayers, rising to 20%, Now that's going to increase from 10% to 18% and from 20% to 24%, which will bring it in line with other assets such as second properties, investment properties, and the capital gains tax for that. So basically you're either going to pay 18% or 24% or a mix of that if you are liable to capital gains tax in the future. Not great, but certainly nothing like as bad as it could have been, where I thought that they might look to align it with income tax rates, which obviously would have been not good news at all for people who are looking to sell assets and would have capital gains tax to pay. So positive of sorts, but yes, still an increase to those tax rates. Now, the other area, pensions, obviously I mentioned about them coming into the inheritance tax regime from 2027. However, there haven't been any other changes announced. So in terms of your concerns about possibly whether you're going to keep your tax-free cash on pensions, yes, you will for the foreseeable future. And certainly in terms of funding pensions, still as good as they were, and still attract the maximum rate of tax relief, whether you pay it through a company or personally. You would get tax relief at the highest rate of tax that you pay. So they're still very much as they were, and a positive move for the future. Some of you do have second homes and investment properties, buy-to-let properties. Unfortunately, it looks like they're going to strangle that market somewhat, because now, should you wish to purchase a second home, and this may not just be for investment purposes, it could be for your children. If you're considering buying a property for them because they can't get a mortgage or for other reasons, you need to be aware that the rate of stamp duty is very, very different to when you're buying your main home. And at the moment, you would pay 3% stamp duty on the purchase price. That's now going to rise to 5%. That's quite a significant sum, because on a £200,000 property, for example, that's another £4,000 of stamp duty. So again, something to be mindful of, and to obviously factor into any considerations you might have if you are considering buying an investment property, a buy-to-let property, or, as I say, a property for perhaps your children in your own name. The final thing that I will just mention, I didn't allude to the fact that income tax thresholds currently, obviously you can earn up to £12,570 before you pay any income tax. That was frozen until 2028. There were concerns that it was going to continue to be frozen, which would obviously pull a lot of people, especially people with state pensions coming into retirement, into income tax. Well, the good news is that they have decided that they are going to allow those thresholds to start to increase again from 2028 to 2029 onwards by the rate of inflation. So hopefully that will help you to earn a little bit more money before they obviously bring you into income tax. So that's a positive as well. In fact, as I say, overall, yes, there is something for smaller businesses in terms of employers' national insurance payments, but then again, you do get an employment allowance, which has been over doubled. So if you're an employer, a small business, you might find that you're not going to be impacted directly by that employer's national insurance rise anyway. But nevertheless, it's quite a significant sum across the board, and not great for businesses in general, but as I say, for individuals, for clients who are in retirement, as many of you will be, I don't think there's too much really to pull from this budget, which is particularly negative. Probably the only thing that, as I say, jumps off the page is this thing whereby pensions are going to be pulled into inheritance tax as part of your assets from 2027 onwards. But as I said earlier, there are workarounds. Please talk to me if you feel that you've got surplus funds and you are worried about the potential for inheritance tax in the future. It's a constant conversation I have with clients. Whether you do anything or not, it's always useful to just be armed with the solutions and the potential solutions that are available to you. And as I say, from today, there's nothing in there that particularly doesn't give us a workaround in the way that we had this morning, yesterday, last week. So, as I say, taxes have increased, yes, across the board in certain respects, but I don't think it's anything like as bad as was perhaps feared, especially I spent too much time reading the media, but that's my job, so there we go. But as I say, generally not too bad. What I would suggest is that if any of you have any questions at all, obviously as always, please let me know. But similarly, if you feel that there might be some merit in you looking at the future in terms of planning around inheritance tax and those sort of areas, please talk to me. Always happy to have that discussion with any of you. And similarly, if you've got any questions at all, please fire them across to me, ring me, whatever. Stay in touch. Thank you very much.